1, 2, 3, 4, and that is so cool. Today I'm going to provide you with a rather detailed step-by-step walkthrough and guide on how to not only start an idea, but also to get that idea arranged and finished. And this works especially well if you are currently feeling a bit stuck and the inspiration isn't flowing too well. This is certainly going to help you get back into the flow. So let's dive in. I'm going to start off with a kick loop. I'm going to take kick number 13 from the Sinai pack. All right, we're going to stick with 115 BPM. And what I usually do after that is I chuck in a couple loops, hi-hats, just anything really, right? I'm just looking for some kind of a starting point. Maybe some hi-hats with a bit more rhythmic variety. And if I don't like a specific sound, I right-click it, I show in browser, and then I swap it out for another one. Just like this. A rather subtle one, right? Preferably also tune down the kick a bit. Fine. And let's go for a clap. Maybe one that has less high frequencies. Sounds more like a rim shot. Still feel like the hi-hats are very sharp, so let's tune down the first one, the main hi-hat. Yeah, let's keep it really subtle. I like that. What else can we add to make the loop more interesting? Preferably some in-between rhythmic textures. Yeah, this one's really nice. Take it, dial it down. Rhythmic textures usually sit below the mix, like below the main elements, and just give it some textures, just flavor, right? Fills in those in between spaces, and a nice little shaker groove to fill it all out. Nice. So you see, I'm just taking loops as some kind of an inspiration starting point. So we got ourselves a basic groove. I'm gonna group all these drums together besides the kick, and I'm gonna call this one tops. Right click the tops channel, assign track color to grouped tracks and clips so they all have the same color. And on this group, I'm gonna make sure to add a drum bus. Drum bus is a nice Ableton Live effect. I've been using it for years and I'm in love with it. I keep it on drive, 20% on the soft drive. We don't want to dampen it. We don't want to take out any higher frequencies. Leave those hi-hats where they are, but we want to compress it. Compression basically pulls up the elements that are very quiet and it pulls down the elements that are very loud. So it tightens those drums and it glues them together. It brings them closer together. And this just makes it sound more natural and more gritty. And then what I do is either go for the dry wet or the output gain. You don't want it to be any louder than it was before. And you can also hit 0 on your number pad or your keyboard to blend it in and blend it back out. It doesn't do too much. It just brings out the shakers a bit. And if you want, you can make the groove more snappy by dialing this transient knob to the left or to the right to emphasize the shaker more, the sustain. For me personally, I do like going to the right a bit more in the case of an organic loop. When I'm working on minimal house, raw minimal house, I mostly turn it to the left to make it more snappy. And then find the right output setting. Okay, so we have the drums together. I'm gonna collapse those. You can hit H, or you can just shift click to highlight them and drag them like this. Or you could also just collapse the entire group like this. Let's call this one kick. And what I personally do when I have the kicks and the tops together is go for some kind of a pad sound, because the pad is what ultimately enables me to transition into more of a melodic space. So let's go for any type of synth sound. I have a few pad sounds in here and all my packs contain some kind of pad sound, so you can check them out. Yeah, this one's really nice. It has more of a darker vibe to it. And we can double click it, perhaps make it a bit louder. All right, tune up the input gain so we have more space to work with in the mixer here. And what I like to do is just loop a certain section, like 4/8 notes or 16th notes. Yeah, these are 16th notes. Also nice. And you see how this one is in B minor? Now we want to select other loops or other sounds around this key of B minor. Minor being a very melancholic and mellow scale. In Ableton Live 12, you also have this scale lock feature or scale awareness, which you can enable or disable. You could also set the global scale to B minor, so you always have your elements in the right scale. Let's go for some kind of a tom groove maybe. This one's in B. This one is also in B. Nice. And I don't want them to overlap here, so I'm going to make sure to dial down on the sound and cut it out like this. So you chop the sound by hitting Command E. And if you want to extend the loop, just highlight and hit Command D. So we got 2 tom grooves. Maybe we can accompany it with a bass groove. I just fill it out a bit, just these snippets, right? And I pay attention to where my toms play, and I place my bass in between. Yeah. And I pay attention to the phrasing. How does the phrasing sound? Boom ba dum bum 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 boom ba dum bum. Listen. In this case, they're very short and percussive bass stabs, but I like them. I like them. They fill out the groove and they give it some kind of a phrasing. And perhaps we can take one more melodic element, loop it, add it to the pad so we get a bit more melodic variety. You see this melodic phrase? B minor matches the key, so I'm going to take it and drag and drop, dial it down. It sounds good, but I want to make it a bit more my own. So let's turn this into a pad as well. Loop into the sound, right? I double click the clip to enter this editing panel. And if we're in 16th, then highlight a certain section, like 4 16th notes, hit Command L. You have more of like the sequence type vibe, and then you can select your favorite part of the sound. Yeah, this one's nice. So I have a really nice little idea going on here. What I'm going to do to make it more interesting is group all the tonal elements. So highlight, hit Command G, Command R to rename into tonal. And again, I'm going to give it all the same color. And what's cool about audio is that you can manipulate all the tracks at the same time. And I love this. I love to create different vibes using this method. So I'm going to collapse all my tracks here so I can select them all at the same time, just like this. So highlight and select. Hit Shift and Tab to enter the multi-editing mode, and you can see already that we have different settings for each of the clips. 14 audio clips are selected. You can see that here. Then you can start pitching the sounds down or up. So all of the drums and the tonal elements are now being pitch shifted at the same time. By double-clicking the pitch, I reset it. And if I just want to edit the tonal elements, I can select just the tonal elements, hit Shift and Tab, and pitch them down. So I keep the drums at the original pitch, but the tonal elements are now pitch shifted down or up. Now this does sound a bit warpy. So what we could do is change it into Complex Pro, a slightly cleaner warp mode, and mess around with the formants and envelopes. Or we could change it into beats or with transient. So much stuff that works here. You can even test out tones. Texture. Pitch it down. So gritty. Okay, Repitch doesn't let me do too much. Complex Pro. I don't usually pitch them up. To be honest, I always go downward because you get more of a lower vibe, but I actually kind of like pitching it up 5 halftone steps in this case. And what you can do is also pitch shift individual tracks. So let's say the shaker, you double click that. While we are in the editing panel, we can just click through the individual clips and it automatically opens them up here. So texture loop, let's pitch that one down. Or up. Beats. Let's pitch down the clap. Nice. Try out different pitches for your samples. It's really such a simple little tip, but it has helped me come up with so many interesting vibes. And what I do when I have a nice little groove together is put an EQ on the master channel. And this is just for the sake of doing a mini performance. I'll get into this in a second. With a Lowcut, this is how my default EQ is set up. You can right click your EQ, set this as your default preset here. And I always have a Lowcut enabled by default because it saves me time. Whenever I play the tracks now, you can hear that there are no lows. Automatically some tension here, right? It's like interesting. And what I will do now is I will send my tonal stuff into track B, which has this Blackhole reverb on it. And I want you to pay attention to the tension curve. Let's send it into C, which is echo, tonal. And then we can take away the sends, put them back down to minus infinity, bring back the bass on the master channel. Nice. And that way you already practice arranging your tracks and create these mini builds, even though while you are in that 4-bar loop. And I'm just going to quickly blend in my iPhone camera here with my little coffee that I just had a sip of. And I'm going to show you what I usually do when it comes to performing my tracks. And I use the Faderfox UC4 MIDI controller. I like it because it gives me everything. It gives me encoders to twist and push down. It gives me 8 faders, which is more than enough to perform, plus 1 crossfader. And you get freaking buttons, dude. And you can change these buttons to also play notes or CC values, but we're not going to get too deep into that today. We're just going to use the MIDI mapping function to map it to the stuff that I've just tweaked. So in Ableton Live, hit Command M to enter MIDI mapping mode. You see this one? This is Send B. This is our Blackhole reverb. And Send C is our echo. Just as an important note, you see the echo? It's always set to 100% because we want to return the fully affected signal. We don't want the dry signal to stack up with itself. So all the return channel effects are set to 100%. Click this guy over here. And now, since I have the Faderfox already connected, we just tweak the knob and we see that it assigns it here. Now we can click the Send channel C and tweak the knob on the Faderfox controller. Right now I'm using the second fader to assign it here. And finally, we can go into our main channel, click the device on off. So we just click here and assign it to maybe a button on the Faderfox, this guy over here. So you see that it is automatically assigned here. I'm not going to do any tweaking here. You could set the minimum and maximum values of each knob. Hit Command M to exit this panel. And now if we hit play, look what I'm doing on the controller now. So I'm going to enable the EQ on the master here with the button. Right, tension. And I'm going to send the tonal group into the reverb now. And I'm going to send the tonal group into the delay. One, two, three, four, and... That is so cool. And when you hit record, make sure that your automation is enabled. This plus icon isn't relevant now because this is only MIDI overdub. We just want to record the automation. But before we do so, let's take our existing framework of 4 bars and duplicate it over to 32 bars so we have a bit more to work with. Now I'm going to make sure to hit record. And it's recording in the background, right? I'm just going to make sure to click this automation mode so I can see the automation. And right now, 1, 2, 3 as a bar 9, 2, 3, 4, end. Okay. EQ is enabled. Tension. Let's bring in that reverb. Aha! We see it here. I'm going to bring in all the elements. Let's say at bar 20, 21. Let's give it a bit of time. Nice. You see, so I've created a bit of a mini arrangement here, and I can now hit plus on the mixer here to open the automation in a new lane. And I can also click the other channels here that I want to have displayed in a new lane. Send B, open that up in a new lane. Highlight these, right click, simplify envelope, and it simplifies the envelope so I can then further tweak it here. Delete some automation points so I don't have that many. And on the master channel, we can also display our EQ8 automation by opening it up here. Nice. And to fill out this space, this emptiness, this little void where the bass is suddenly removed, what I usually do is just go for some kind of ear candy sound, type in E, minor in my searching panel here and look for some kind of sounds. Like this. Put it here, maybe shorten it out. Also add it to the Blackhole and echo. And now we just need to find the right placement. Maybe place it right before the kick comes back in, you see? Right here is where the kick fully comes back in, where the EQ is then disabled again. Nice, and then we can just further add these little tiny snippets of sound into our arrangement, just like this. And I usually then like placing a couple more inside this break or build up. Hit Option to duplicate the clip, Option Shift to scroll through it. And to make this little pre-drop phase a bit more interesting, what you could do is right-click, go into one bar, and then take away the drums for an entire bar. Make sure that you're going out of automation mode, so it's disabled as you can see here. Just highlight, delete, and you can also take away the kick for a bar so it becomes a bit more interesting before we bring back the elements. Nice. Set a bit of a fade here. You see that click? Need to be careful with those little clicks. Play that again. Nice. Maybe one final transition effect. So transition, have a couple of those here. Chuck them in here. There we go. Just place it correctly, set the volumes right, hit Command to go off grid. Also send it into our reverb and delay. So this is how it sounds like. Whoopa. Timing. So let's play that entire build-up section now. And what you could do is just try out different ear candy sounds, try out different automation values, and see what sticks with you. This by far is just my absolute favorite way to come up with track ideas. If you like this video, feel free to hit that like and subscribe button. It does help the channel grow. You can find all the sounds on LotusTunes.com. And if you want to join a community, feel free to join in on Discord. I will see you in the next video. Peace.